Hi friends, it's Adelita Grijalva, your Pima County District 5 Supervisor. It is Tuesday, April 16th. We just finished our Board of Supervisors meeting. We started at 9 and ended at 2:30. So we had a very long meeting, a lot of discussion and some really important conversations that we had as a board. And then we had quite a long session, an executive session. We had 3 items there, so that sort of added to the time. We had several proclamations. It was nice to see a lot of good friends. I'm going to make sure, check on our socials because we share pictures of everybody. I want to thank Mark Binate for coming to the board and speaking, then reading the land acknowledgement, and I thought it was really timely that you were there right before we did a moment of silence for the passing of Barclay Goldsmith, the pioneer in Borderlands Theater, and we're going to miss him a lot, and love and prayers go out to Raquel and the family. We had 12 speakers. More than half of them addressed items that were actually on our agenda. So I thought that was a really good step in the right direction. We had our vote on the Pima County Treasurer, and Chris Ackerley, by a 3-2 vote, was named the individual who's going to carry on the position and appointed to the position of treasurer, replacing Beth Ford, and he'll be taking that on until December 2024, and then he is running for the office. Final approval of ARPA funds. These are the funds that must be obligated by December 31st, 2024, and all cash expended by December 31st, 2026. There were a couple items on that agenda that I thought were of note, and I think that if you want to go ahead and have a look at all of the funding and where it's going, I encourage you to do that. We had a monthly and annual budget update. This is essentially Pima County is $4.5 million in the red. And so of note, I just want to say this out loud because it's frustrating that I don't want it to seem like Pima County is not being good stewards of your tax dollars. Fiscal year 22, $5.6 million of items that the state used to cover were shifted to Pima County. So they're called state cost shifts, 5.6 million. This fiscal year in 23, almost $16 million, 15.96, so almost $16 million of in state cost shifts occurred. So what was proposed initially by Administrator Lesher, after all of the other cuts, because initially the numbers were looking at 18 million. So we've done some belt tightening here in Pima County and among our departments. And so now what it's looking like is there was essentially a proposal for 3% across all county departments, 1% across elected departments, and a 1% across outside agency. Now, outside agency includes anything that is outside of Pima County that receives general fund. So Job Path, Sun Corridor, Metropolitan Education Commission, those are just a few of the outside agencies. But then there's a process called the outside agency sort of grant review process where nonprofit organizations write for much smaller amounts in grants. And it's a competitive process, and that's something that I'm really familiar with, having run Teen Court for 26 years. That was something that we always did, and what I was advocating for is that process and the amount of funds that goes to those outside nonprofit organizations in the competitive process, that remains untouched. And so said that again. What I think was really great is that we're going to have a study session. And Supervisor Lee's been talking about it. I know that when I first got on the board, I was talking about it, and there was not a lot of interest amongst leadership at the time to do that. And I think that we've taken a shift where we actually just want to talk about the budget and have a real frank conversation about where we are and help everyone to understand that. And it would be a study session. So supervisors would vote with their feet. So if they attended, great. And if they didn't have to, because we're not going to be taking any action, but it will be a public meeting. And that'll be taking place sometime in May. Several items requested extensions of contracts with outside groups. There were a couple, like a grant writing one with Pima County Attorney's Office. There was another one, a couple with the health department. One of them specifically about vaccine equity, and we have equity departments within the health department. So I just sort of asked why those contracts are coming forward and why we can't do some of those things in-house. And so hopefully we'll get some information about that. We had an item that was on our agenda 2 times. This was the 3rd time by Supervisor Scott regarding a vacancy and a board policy to address vacancies. So essentially in Pima County, we have on average about 900 vacancies at any given time, and some of them have been on the books for a very long time. So this board policy automatically will sweep any position that has been vacant for 540 days or more. And then we'll start looking at positions that have been vacant 240 days or more. There is also an appeal process to go to county administration, and some of these positions will be exempt because, for example, HVAC. But we have 4 vacancies in HVAC that have been vacant for a long time, but those positions need to stay there because if we can find somebody to fill those positions, we obviously want them to come and work for Pima County. There's a resolution brought forward by Supervisor Hines against the 1864 near total abortion ban. That item passed 4-1 with Supervisor Christie voting no. I thought that it was very important as a community and as a board for us to let our community know that they are safe here in Pima County and that we understand that your total access to healthcare needed for your safety, security, and life is critical. And as the board that oversees the Pima County Health Department, the Health Department is one of the largest budgets in our county and what we oversee. I think it's critically important for us to make sure that any laws that are going to cause our marginalized communities of color, people living in poverty to have less quality access to healthcare than their people who have more money. I think that it's important for us to take a stand. And one of the statements that I've said several times is my daughter now has less rights than not just her grandmother, but her great-grandmother. And that is completely unacceptable in our community. And so I was glad to lend our voice to stand with our community against that archaic ban. We also had a discussion about duplication of services. This was a long discussion. What essentially happened is we started talking about it. Supervisor Lee brought it up in looking at what are the services that Pima County has that we pay other organizations to also do similar services. And it was not a specific conversation. It was just like, let me know what are some of those services. And JobPath and CWD, Community Workforce Development in Pima County, have very similar missions, but they don't have the same discretion in funding. And so CWD has a lot of grant funding where Pima County provides general funds to JobPath to do much of the same thing. And so we were talking about that, and JobPath, somebody in JobPath sent out an email that said, come to the board meeting, protect our funding or something like that. JobPath has received $1 million every year for the last 3 years from ARPA funding, and additionally received $750,000 of general fund money. And I'd ask for some specific information about how they decide who gets what funding, how do they show their success. And that was last week, and I still don't have any information about it. And that's the second time I've asked those kind of questions. And so I do have a concern about that because Pima County is fiscally responsible for the distribution of any of those federal funds, and any finding in any of those other organizations affects Pima County. And so that's where I was coming from. I think that, any organization that is working with students to try to help them through the educational process and navigate that is something I'm in favor of. I just want to make sure if it's something that we can do in-house where we have a little more control and discretion over the procurement process, the distribution of funds, I think it's something that we need to explore. So with that, we have some updates. So a D5 Earth Day volunteer event. We're going to be at Santa Cruz River Day of Connection Cleanup. This is Saturday, April 20th, 9 a.m. at the Santa Cruz River Park, 802 North Riverside Drive. D5 will be joining the Santa Cruz River Day of Connection with River Restoration and Cleanup. There'll be food trucks, community, music, and more. Please remember to wear closed-toe shoes, bring a bottle of water. This event is in partnership with the Unitarian Sonoran Institute, Tucson Clean and Beautiful, Tucson Audubon Society, and the Wilderness Society, so that'll be fun. And then I won't be able to talk to you until the Tucson International Mariachi Conference is over next time. So Tucson International Mariachi Conference. Downtown events are starting May 1st. Wednesday is the Canta. And then May 2nd is the Student Showcase, which is my favorite event. So come and support Youth Mariachi. And then they'll have the Espectacular concert is Friday. And then Garibaldi is Saturday. So it'll be a wonderful weekend full of events. Please come down. Our next board meeting is going to be on Tuesday, May 7th. And so I encourage you to check in then. And thank you for keeping up with Pima County politics. Stay safe, my friends.